Morning children, welcome to sociology class. As you know children that we are studying the chapter classical thinkers and theories. We have already studied about 3 classical thinkers. Now this is the 4th one. His name is Herbert Spencer and he has given great contributions to the field of sociology. So let us begin with the life sketch of Herbert Spencer and then we shall discuss the theories given by him. Spencer was born in England in 1820. As a child he was very weak and sickly and he never attended a regular school and was instructed at his home because of his sickness. By the age of 16, he was well trained in mathematics and also natural sciences. But his major interest was in ethics and politics. He wrote many books and his first book was Social Statistics. It was published in 1852 and this book was followed by another book named First Principles in 1862. But he had given major contributions in the field of sociology. Though he had written many books as Principles of Biology and Principles of Psychology, but his great contribution was towards sociology. So according to our syllabus, what we have to study as the theories of Herbert Spencer is the theory of evolution. In this theory of evolution, we shall study his organic analogy and social Darwinism. So first of all, let us understand what is the theory of evolution. Evolution means the stages of development. So the major concern of Spencer was his evolutionary change in social structures and social institutions like marriage, like education, family, etc. So these were the major concerns: social structures and social institutions. According to him, the evolution of human society, far from being different from other evolutionary phenomenon, is but a special case of universally applicable natural law. Ultimately, all universal phenomena, inorganic and superorganic, are subject to the natural law of evolution. This was his thinking. So according to Spencer, evolution is an integration of matter and dissipation of motion, means matter and motion, during which the matter passes from an indefinite, incoherent homogeneity to a definite, coherent heterogeneity. It means that according to him, the development of human society like an organ is firstly very simple, but after that, when it develops, it becomes heterogeneous or heterogeneity develops, means it becomes complicated or complex. So in the beginning, every society is simple and was simple, but afterwards the societies became complex or complicated. So he says that in the beginning everything was homogeneous, so homogeneity was prevailing, but after that it became heterogeneous, means heterogeneity prevailed. Means the societies turned from simple to complex, homogeneous to heterogeneous, right? So here he has given two distinct and interrelated aspects which are known as the aspects of Spencer's theory of evolution. First is movement from simple societies to various levels of compound society. Right? So he is comparing society and the organs. He says that this movement of development or evolution is the movement from simple societies to various levels of compound societies. Now, this Spencer identified 4 types of societies. These are according to the evolutionary stages. Firstly, simple societies, then compound societies, then doubly compound societies, and the trebly compound societies. So according to him, these are the 4 types of societies in terms of evolutionary stages: simple, compound, doubly compound, and trebly compound. Each society distinguishes from other societies on the basis of more or less complexity. Right? So he says that there is an inherent or a compulsory tendency for the homogeneous to become heterogeneous and for the uniform to become multiform. I hope you have understood this much. Okay, now the second aspect is change from military to industrial society. According to him, the previous or early societies were the military societies, which turned into industrial societies. This viewpoint of society states that types of social structure depend on relation of a society to other societies in its significant environment. Thus, the evolution is from military to industrial societies. Firstly, he says that the former characterized by, former means the military society. The military society is characterized by compulsory cooperation. There is no choice. Cooperation is compulsory. While the later means industrial society is based on voluntary cooperation. Right? It means cooperation is not compulsory. It is voluntary. Second point he keeps here, that the military society is also characterized by a centralized government. Military society. It is governed by a centralized government, which is a rigid system of stratification, means the people of the society are divided into some stratas or levels which are permanent. Then it has economic autonomy, right? Their own economical structure they have. Then it has a state domination of all social organization, means there is a king or a ruler who dominates the whole social organization. But on the other hand, the chief characteristics of an industrial society are free trade. There is no compulsion, free trade, right? As we have seen that it is, the previous one is there is economic autonomy, but here we see the free trade. Then laws of economic autonomy prevails in the industrial societies. They are independent voluntary organization, and relatively it is an open system of stratification, means the people can change their level of standard of living or their economic level. So it is a free system or an open system and a decentralized government. So if we compare both, there are differences between the military society and the industrial society. So according to him, in the beginning, the early societies were the military societies, but the modern societies are the industrial societies. So these are the two concepts which are counted in the theory of evolution. The first is, it is a movement from simple society to compound societies, and second is, means theory of evolution is a change from military to industrial society. Okay, so now under the theory of evolution, we shall learn about his organic analogy. What is analogy? It is a comparison between two things that shows a way in which they are similar. So it is a comparison between two things. So here mainly he has compared the organs and the society. So Spencer took great pains to elaborate in great details of organic analogy, which is the identification of a society with biological organisms. He has compared society with biological organism. He regarded the recognition of the similarity between society and organisms as the first step towards a general theory of evolution. In his words, so complete is society organized on the same system as an individual that we may perceive something more than an analogy between them. The same definition of life applies to both. This is something in his words. And Spencer noted several similarities between biological and social organisms. Right? So he says that as an organism is very much organized, the growth is very much organized, in the same way the society must be organized and it is automatically organized. So it is a comparison between biological and social organism. So we shall discuss these points on social analogy, organic analogy. First one, both society and organisms have visible growth during the greater part of their existence. He means to say that both, if we take any organism, right, growth of any animal or a plant, so their growth and the growth of society is visible. We can see it, right, in the greater part of their existence. First point, it is a comparison between an organ and a society, right? Second point, he says that as societies and organisms grow in size, they also increase in complexity of structure. As the human body increases, or plant body or any organism increases, we see that in the beginning it looks very simple, but when it grows to its full growth, it becomes complex. In the same way, the early societies were very simple, but the modern societies are very much complex. Okay. Now, third point, both in societies and organisms, progressive differentiation of structure is accompanied by progressive differentiation of functions. It means as the structure changes, as the structure of any organism or any society changes, the functions also change accordingly. For example, children, we can take a family, right? When the structure of the family changes, automatically the functions of the family get changed, right? So both are interrelated. The structure and the functions of any society or any organisms are interdependent. If there is change in one, then there is automatic change in the other one, right? Then next is evolution establishes for both societies and organisms differences in structure and function that make each other possible. So we see here, children, that evolution means the development takes everywhere, whether it is a plant or animal or human body or the society. Everywhere evolution means that development takes place, and automatically there is structure and functions also get affected, right? And lastly, we can discuss one more point here for organic analogy, that just as a living organism may be regarded as a nation of units that live individually, so a nation of human beings may be regarded as an organism, right? For example, we can take a human body. There are many organs, but all are called one body. In the same way, there are many organs in a group of individuals, but it is all called, when they get together, it is called a society. So these are the 5 points which can be discussed in organic analogy. Okay, now the last part is, in the theory of evolution, we shall discuss the social Darwinism, right? It is also a part of his theory. Which theory? Theory of evolution. In theory of evolution, we have already discussed organic analogy. Now the second part is social Darwinism. It's very important. So what is social Darwinism? Social Darwinism is an attempt to apply Darwin's theory of evolution. Actually, Darwin had given a theory of evolution. So this society has been compared with the same. Okay, so we call it social Darwinism, dealing with the development of plants and animals to social phenomena. So here again we are comparing the growth of plants and animals or any organism with the social phenomena, right? Herbert Spencer and Sumner were the two most outspoken advocates of social Darwinism. They favored this theory in sociology, right? So Spencer's social Darwinism is centered around two fundamental principles which are discussed below. So these are the two principles which can be explained in the Spencer's theory of social Darwinism. The first principle is the principle of the survival of the fittest. The principle of the survival of the fittest. And second is the principle of non-interference. These are the two principles of social Darwinism theory stated by Spencer. Okay, so the first is the principle of the survival of the fittest. This theory is completely affected or impressed by the natural laws. Spencer fully endorsed the natural process of conflict and survival. Conflict and survival, which operates as a kind of biologically purifying process, right? So here he says that society is very much influenced by the natural law, right? So according to him, nature has endowed, means nature has a quality with a providential tendency to get rid of unfit and to make room for the better. No? Again I am repeating, nature has a tendency to get rid of unfit and to make room or a place for the better. It is the law of nature that the weak should be eliminated for the sake of strong. As we see in the nature, the unfit things automatically are eliminated. The unfit things automatically get eliminated from the nature, like the dry leaves we can say. Okay? Or if there are two animals, right? Both have to survive, but which animal will survive? Who is more powerful, who can collect food for him. And the weak animal after some time will die, right? It means that animal will be eliminated for the sake of a strong, right? So it is called the principle of survival of the fittest. In the society also, some societies are governed by this natural law, that there is a place only for the fittest, right? Who can win the race, who are more powerful, but there is no place for the weak. Which type of weak? Physically weak, who cannot compete with others, right? So this law is called the principle of the survival of the fittest, which is applied in the human societies, right? Then the second principle is the principle of non-interference. Spencer was a serious advocate of individualism and laissez-faire politics. Laissez-faire politics means no interference of government in certain affairs. He says that government should not interfere in all affairs of social life, right? So he opposed almost any form of state means government, interference with private activity. He insisted that the state had no business in education. According to him, the government should not interfere in education field, in health, in sanitation, in postal services, money and banking, and also regulation of housing conditions or the elimination of poverty. There should be no interference of government. For Spencer, the state has a sort of joint stock company whose only role was the protection of the rights of individuals, right? So government's role is only the protection of the rights of individual and the defense of its citizens against external aggression. In no other way government should interfere in other matters. So Spencer was of the opinion that sociologists should convince the state and the citizens not to intervene in the natural process of selection operative in society. So in his words, nature is more intelligent than man, and once you begin to interfere with the order of nature, there is no knowing where the result will end. So according to him, only the natural law of the survival should prevail in the society, and government should not interfere in all the matters prevailing in the society. So this is all about Herbert Spencer's theory of evolution, right? It has two parts, organic analogy and social Darwinism. In the next video, I will explain the theories and life sketch of Max Weber.